right, here we go. It is yet another Monday, and we are back with the HEF podcast. Bring that music back. Yeah, there we go. We'll just lower it a little bit. Welcome back to the HEF podcast. That is the podcast of the Home Education Foundation, which is an organization started by the amazing Brenda Dickinson, a legend in Florida home education rights. She and her husband fought in the 1980s for home education to be made a legal path in Florida. They worked with the legislature, and it became so and was recognized, which was a historic difference in the way that home education rights are treated. Up until, I believe it started around 1925 with Pierce versus Society of Sisters, that homeschooling, quote unquote, was something that lived up underneath the umbrella of private schools. And it was kind of an expansion of the ability to school in private. And in Florida in the 1980s, that became spelled out as home education, and it doesn't have to live underneath a private school. The parents directly have the right to teach their own children as they see fit, to set those standards and to pursue their educational journey with their children. And that is something we're extremely thankful for. And we're also thankful for the support of parents in Florida who support our work. We are funded only through donations from the parents of the free state of Florida. So we want to tell them a special thank you. We had our annual fundraiser in August, and it went off right down to the wire. We had a home education family that had issued a challenge to other families in the state to help support the work that we do, and that if we could raise a pledge of $6,000, they would in fact donate a $6,000 check of their own to match those funds. And we hit that very first donation match challenge, and we're so thankful for that. We're also thankful for our top sponsors, so Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group, for their support. They come in each month with their own donations. And if you're not aware of what a top sponsor is, it is a business entity that has decided that they are going to support the work that we do because they value home education, and they value freedom, and they value the involvement of parents, and they want to show support for the work that we do to protect those rights. And so here we are. It's a wonderful day. It is another Monday. Brenda, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Crystal, how are you? I feel like it's always odd when I ask you that because I just saw you 2 seconds ago before we started, but for everyone else watching.
I am good. Yes.
Good. I feel like because I know that I sometimes skip you, and I don't mean to. So if you're viewing, it's a bad habit of mine. You can call me on it in the comments. So for today, we're gonna hit a couple of things. We're gonna do a legislative update. I think that's very important. We're gonna front load that. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive right into that. We are watching Senate Bill 318 that is sponsored by Senator Gates and a couple of other senators. It has a very wide, I would say bipartisan, but Senator Pizzo had left the Democrat Party, so I think he's independent at this point. But it still has a diversity of support. So it'll be heard this week in appropriations on Wednesday at 9 a.m. And so we'll be there watching that. And we do have some things that are issues with this bill. And we're posting those in Discord. If you haven't joined our Discord yet, you really should get in there. Our HEF Discord can be found at flhef.org/Discord, and you can see all the information there that's needed to join and understand what that is. Inside our Discord, we have a channel for legislative updates, and it's very important to take a look there and see. We'll be posting updates in there today. There's going to be a small list of things that are key issues. We're not going to give our entire laundry list of all the issues that we have. So if you feel like there's something that's important that we missed, it's not necessarily that we missed it. What we're putting in this short list is the ones that are very critical So and the way that these are in there are a little nuanced. So, read that carefully and consider it, weigh it carefully. We would like to ask parents um, if you're in an area or a county where one of your senators is on the committee, on the appropriations committee. There are some things that we definitely need fixed with this bill, and we would like for you to draft an email with some of those bullet points that we'll be sharing with you, but please make it your own. We don't like the copy paste things that you see a lot of organizations do. I know that they're helpful and they make it easy, and I can just copy this and paste it and send it to my senator, and it makes life easy. Unfortunately, a lot of those kind of come and go, and they start to see one. They know if they've seen one, they've seen them all, and so they start to just skip and ignore you. And I don't want to foster any kind of habitual ignoring of home education families when we send in messages. So I'll do my best to make the bullet points as simple as possible, and I would encourage you to use the compliment sandwich. There are some things in this bill that they fixed, and we're very thankful that they fixed them. One of those things in particular is the background screenings issue that would have gummed up all of the reimbursement process for all of parents, making all of the providers in the scholarship program have to have background screenings. And then, of course, before parents would be able to get things reimbursed, they would also be lumped into that. And so our feedback to them was, please make it just a matter of participating in the online service provider portal. And they heard us and they did that. They made that change. That's a fantastic change that keeps the burden off of parents. And I can't tell you how critical that is. If you look at everything that's going on right now with the scholarship funding organizations, the Department of Education, and the cross checks, and you've been paying attention to the committee meetings, you'll know that there is a lot of additional background work that's going on that is completely slowing down a lot of the reimbursements, and their time is split, their resources are split, and that's a struggle. I'm concerned that that in this bill is also kind of cutting some of the resources in terms of funding for the scholarship funding organizations. I think that'll have a negative impact on trying to encourage more scholarship funding organizations to come to Florida to participate. Once they see that drop, that's not going to make people really excited to come here and participate, which would, mean we don't get competition, and competition would be good. But also, it means that we're asking them to do more work with less resources. And so I'm not sure if that line is going to make it all the way through, because it's also got to go through the House and different things like that. And it's not one of our critical issues that we're fighting for. We are fighting primarily for home education parents' rights. And so that's what we were focused on. But I do think that's a bit of a problem that they're going to have to solve if they want more work done and fewer resources.
Jason, I don't think it would be bad for parents to comment on that, especially ones that have had difficulty getting their payments on a timely basis, to comment that reducing the amount that the scholarship funding organizations get to do the job is going to make it even more delayed in getting reimbursements, and that would affect parents. PEP parents would be harmed by that. So, and I was going to make a comment about your wise comment on not copy paste and send it that way. But if they can use the bullets and put it personally, say, this would affect my family this way, I would appreciate it if you would consider whatever you put in the bullet, and make it personal to their family, because that way, especially if they're a constituent, and really you need to be a constituent of the legislator you're writing to, they'll want to hear from you. So make it personal as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's critical. And while you're at it, if you happen to want to put together a short video talking about what your homeschool journey has looked like, why you do it, and what impact it's had, we still have the Tell Your Story project up on our website where you can participate and make a little 60-second short video and upload it. And that becomes a repertoire that we're able to share with them whenever we're having conversations with them, or we can send them those little links and they get a better idea of what it truly looks like, because it's very different. We're going to talk about some of that later, so I'll save that conversation for a little bit more later. But some of the other challenges that we're having with the bill in particular center around what happens to the funds upon graduation. There is not it's not very clearly worded. I think it's very poorly worded, and it kind of mixes home education program and the student learning plan together for PEP, which all of these have definitions in statute, so they're not the same, and it treats them kind of clustered together, so it's really just not clear, and we want to understand clearly what happens. A PEP student doesn't terminate a home education program because they're not in one. And so termination letter and proof of withdrawal from the county isn't something that a PEP student has. So how are they going to designate when a PEP student has terminated their program? Does it necessarily mean at a certain date at the end of the public school year, which a lot of traditional homeschooling families don't follow those dates? And so, would it be another date in August that they finish their program, or would it be a date in September because that's when they get their funding, because that's when the new funding will be dropping, September 15th. So, will the end of their schooling coincide with the beginning of the next year? So when will they terminate that personalized education program? I think all of these things are important. What's the word? Specific language that's missing to kind of guide and clarify. But also we would prefer it just be up to the parent when that ends. Obviously they don't receive any more funds once, that year has ended. And we wouldn't expect that by statute, but what they're going to do in this bill is start to make funds revert back to the program, away from the student once it is terminated. So we definitely want clarity on what that means, and that's not in this bill.
Let me make a point here.
Yes,
Even
ma'am.
though home education programs, thus PEP programs, can start whenever a parent chooses, if they've previously been in a public school, they need to withdraw that child as soon as possible near the end of the school year, because they roll over the students in the public school system. And if your child doesn't show up the first day of school of the next year, then let 5 days roll as unexcused absences, and they'll be knocking on your door as a truant parent wanting to know why your child is not in the school.
Yeah.
So terminate the public school program that your child was in, go to the school, terminate, and then you can start your program for home education later whenever you want to start it. That will be your anniversary date.
Yeah, we're going to talk about truancy some more later as well, but there is a major crackdown on truancy. They're putting a focus on that, and it is important. I'm very disappointed in the committees and the way that they have been ran, in that there has been an absence of accountability on the part of the school districts and the schools. They had them in for one committee meeting. They didn't have them in consistently. And I know for a fact that some of the situations that we dealt with in advocating for parents, the schools were telling some of the parents, the parents said that they wanted to withdraw their student, and they said, wait until such a date, and then we'll process the withdrawal. And that means they're trying to turn in FEFP funding so that they get funding for the student, and then wanted to withdraw them. Then that student ended up actually losing their license because they showed up on a truancy report and lost their license, even though they were a PEP student.
Driver's license.
What did I say?
License.
Oh, yes. Driver's license. Yeah. Specifically driver's license. And then there is an issue with the Department of Transportation where they don't have an easy way to validate PEP, which we're still trying to work on behind the scenes. The Department of Education has people who have helped us with these issues. So it's something that we're familiar with and they're familiar with, but there isn't actually a piece of paper or on the paperwork itself a clear way where parents can check a box and submit their own way of fixing it. So it's still a bit cumbersome, and these problems that we get caught up in, that parents get caught up in, are onerous and time wasting for everybody. And yet, the school districts, we kind of just let them slip this time around. We put all the accountability on the Department of Education and on the scholarship funding organizations. And I think the school districts need to do some answering, but I'm not the one running the committees. So, but let's see, shouldn't PEP ID be sufficient proof? PEP ID is sufficient proof, but there's no way to submit that to the Department of Transportation to clear up the issues where truancy has caused a driver's license to be revoked. That's not on the paperwork that they send the parents. So when the parent gets it, they're confused as to what to do. It tells them to go to the school and get a letter this way, or to show a letter of intent with their home education program, and they don't have either of those. So they need to just magically know what to do because it's not on the paper. So we help get involved and get them over to the right people at the Department of Education. I'm talking too fast. Who then get in touch with the people who they've been working at with the Department of Transportation, who are familiar, and they go ahead and help clean it up. But it needs to be something that is a parent can just submit and do. PEP has been here for a bit, so it needs to be on that paper and recognized. So yeah, there's one more. What did we talk about? There's one more issue with the bill. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head because I don't have it on one of the screens in front of me. I need more screens. It has to do with Crystal. Do you remember? There was one more.
We were talking about the application window.
Yes, that was it. The application window. So they have in this bill they've issued a uniform application process where there will be one process, one application process for all scholarships, which is fine. That'll help streamline things. But then they still have different windows for PEP. And one of the things that they had spoken about in the subcommittees in previous years was that the Hope Scholarship wasn't necessarily as important because we had these other options that you could jump into anytime throughout the year. And when they said that, PEP was in fact able to be joined at any point throughout the year as it was growing, but that provision sunsetted. So now the only application window is February to April. And
for the previous school year.
Right. In the previous school year for the next coming school year. Yes. So that application window is February to April for the fall term that begins. And that doesn't really benefit, parents who want to pull their students out for abuse or bullying or situations that arise that the Hope Scholarship would have fit. And so that it kind of fell. The idea or that they were discussing in subcommittees kind of fell apart because of that sunset provision. And I think it would be good to just go ahead and allow, if you're having one application process, just go ahead and allow both of the application windows to mirror each other as well. And, I have spoken with our contacts at the scholarship funding organizations, and they seem to think that's not any more of a burden of work for them. It wouldn't bother them. It was no matter. So I do think it would be good for parents and students to have those options and that flexibility for.
And for clarity, when you're saying both application windows, they're allowing a fall application window, which actually is, earlier than fall, but it's for the fall
right.
scholarship drop. And then they're allowing a spring application window, which actually happens in the fall for the spring. But PEP, for whatever reason, they were only allowing the first one. So that's what Jason is meaning, is he's advocating for PEP to be open for both windows, just like the other scholarships, so that, if you decide something's not working a few months into your school year, you have the option to apply and you would be eligible for PEP in the spring.
Yes, that's correct. All right. So
What
moving.
about the
Go ahead.
10 payments? Where is that?
Oh, that's still in this bill too. Yeah, that that I forgot about that. Actually, that is there. It is going to be quite. I'm a little personally. It doesn't bother Jason Crawford, but I think that for a lot of parents, especially those who are coming into the scholarship new and they didn't have any funds that kind of rolled over from the previous year, this is going to be a massive problem because you're going to have only 1/10 of the scholarship available to decide what to do with it as you begin. And then there are a lot of programs or home education instructional programs, tutoring programs, co-ops, etc., that are going to want a deposit up front with, kind of payment drops as you go forward. And I don't think 1/10 of the scholarship's going to cover that. So I'm concerned about that.
It's really important for UA parents because
Yes.
they have to commit to therapists and
Yes.
PTs and all of the other therapies that their children have to have, and they won't be able to get them if they can't pay.
Yes, that's true, and that does make it so much more burdensome. I'm wondering if the providers might have to go direct pay for a lot of those and change their payment schedules for some of those things in response to this if they ram this through, because I do think this is going to make it more taxing on parents
Yeah.
to make
Then
those
you're
decisions.
going to run into the providers that just aren't willing to do that. Like some of the therapists
Yeah.
might not be willing to take less upfront and wait for the scholarship to drop.
Right.
And so,
Many of them are not businesses, they're individuals providing the therapies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And even for the HEIPs, most of the ones I know about have some sort of structure where, however many classes you're doing for the year, you commit to that up front, and there is a date by which you have to have paid a certain percentage of that in a deposit. And if you don't, you lose the seats in the classes. So they would have to the HEIPs would either have to completely restructure how they secure the seats, or the parents are just going to have to ride those expenses until there's enough in their account to submit for reimbursement. So it definitely affects parents. I'm also a little concerned just logistically with making the parents reaffirm every payment. The potential for glitches and funding to be just for mistakes to be made and parents to lose funding because of how many times that confirmation process has to be repeated throughout the school year. And I've seen glitches happen with the cross checks at the beginning. So I'm just imagining 10 opportunities now for those glitches rather than one. So
yeah, I think when you multiply the opportunity for error, but you don't increase the reward or the benefit on the other end, you've just increased risk without increasing reward. So there's not, other than they would say, well, we won't be misspending funds as we go. It's like, well, you could fix that. You could easily fix that without having to do it this way.
Yeah, and it seems like it's more work also for the scholarship funding organizations, and yet they're cutting their expenditure funds. So just altogether as a scenario, it's a little concerning.
And I think this is a big issue that parents could contact their senator about, even if the senator is not on the committee, because our understanding is that the House is the one that is going to be kind of driving this issue. And the senators, as I understand it, are not going to make any changes in their bills. So, Jason, this is what you and I talked about as far as strategy. We think that the Senate is going to pass their bill as is over to the House. Then the House will do whatever they plan to do and put it on the Senate bill and make those changes there. This will probably go back and forth maybe a couple of times before it ends up being the final bill. But start contacting the education committees in the House, especially the appropriations committee in the House, to voice your concerns about how the 10 payments are going to affect your child.
Yeah, and especially since every parent is probably going to have a slightly different way in which it's going to affect you, whether it's therapists or your HEIP program. So if they see a variety of concerns and it doesn't feel like a copy paste complaint, they're more likely to actually stop and go, okay, maybe we didn't think about how this would impact parents. So
Yeah. And I'm going to bring this over real quick and just share on the screen on our website, there is under information. You should see it right on our website, flhef.org. If you go to the information tab, you'll find a link to Find My Rep and Find My Senator. And both of those links can be used to find who you belong to, or who belongs to you, rather, who reports to you for representation, to make sure that you can get word to them, to the correct representatives. And I think that's very important, that we're not just sending mass emails to all of them and blasting them. We need to be very, if they're your representative, you're voting in elections, or what put them where they are, then they are beholden to you, to listen to you. And so that's important.
I would even put in the email, if you're sure it's your representative, your address, so that if they want to contact you, put your phone number in there and let them know that you are in their district by giving them your address.
Yeah. Also, okay. When you do that and you look up your representative or your senator, it'll bring up, it'll have you put in, at least for the representative one, it has you put in your address, and then it shows you. Under the picture, there's a thing you can click that says full detail. If you click that, it'll take you to another page that tells you what committees they're on. So that's also helpful, because if they're on any kind of education-related committee, you can mention that in your email and just say, hey, please consider this. I know you're on this committee. Even if they're not, though, you can still reach out to them because they talk to each other.
Well, very good. Yeah, all that is great. All right. So now let's turn our attention to a different bill, a bill by someone that worked with us very well last year with the extracurricular bill. And I hate to say it, but extracurriculars is back in the spotlight. 1006.15, the Craig Dickinson Act, is back and being completely reformed, to be honest with you. It looks like a section rewrite, and there are some things about this that are troubling. They're trying to lump all of the students together and call them all eligible student and define what that means. So they're basically treating all students the same. I think that treating students equally is important, and I think that matters. However, I do think that there are some aspects of being a home education student that are unique to being a home education student. One of those is, you're not stuck in a room with those four walls all day. You're not bound to a specific location. So the idea of a zoned school, it kind of is a miss in terms of the way that it's structured. You still register with the county, but you're not homeschooling through any particular public school. So it's because of that, a lot of the points of reference in this bill reference your zoned school, and if your zoned school doesn't have the sport, you can play at another school, and so it kind of tiers down your levels of access. It does include outside of county play, so it very specifically states some of the issues that we've been fighting over and having trouble with the way that the law currently states it. We get arguments from schools outside of a district that a parent is on a line, and the school that they're closest to is 5 minutes away. The school that they're zoned for in their district is 20 minutes away, and their friends all go to the school across in the other district that they're wanting to play at, and it's like right down the street. So they did address that and add that specifically to this bill, which is good, but it's gatekept by the fact that you can only do any of that if your zoned public school in your district doesn't allow that. So they're going to walk back a lot of the stuff that they had previously had that was all just spelled out in statute already. So we're going to also drop a write-up for this bill in Discord. So if you're one of those parents who's really interested in extracurriculars and sports, you should definitely be in our Discord and be talking about this. There is a scholarship section in our Discord where if you want to have discussions about, PEP or the Florida Empowerment Scholarship that's for children with unique abilities, and you're, trying to figure your way through those are there. But also, those tried and true home education families who aren't using scholarship, we're there as well. And so having discussions that center around that can happen in there. There's channels by county. So whatever county you're in, if you're struggling or having issues and, we help you work through something, someone else in your county might benefit from that discussion. So having, being in there and being active is important. And obviously this particular bill, this is Senate Bill 538 by Senator Simon that deals with extracurriculars. We're going to be posting it in the Discord as well under legislative updates. When you get there, you'll actually see a thread for each of the bills that we're going to be working on with that either have issues or things that we're watching acutely. There are a lot of other bills that we're watching too. I've seen bills on educator requirements, and I like to keep an eye on those. There's some bills that are aimed squarely at Hillsborough County and superintendents in the school board. So, if you're in Hillsborough County, you're going to want to watch some of those bills. There are individual education plans. There's a bill up for IEPs and some of the details around obtaining an IEP or updating an IEP. So it'll be good to watch those as well. We're going to keep an eye on those as well. As of right now, there's nothing major to really report on those, but if those haven't even been referred to committees or anything. So when things like that happen and they do become something, we'll put them up in that list so you'll know what to keep an eye on. And if there's something important to you, you can act on it and send in information. Let's see. Did I get to all of that? All right, good. So now,
Jason, we're also interested in if a parent sees something in a bill that might affect them, for them to give us feedback on it, because we can't always know every parent's situation. And so
that's true.
That would, we just basically, we welcome parent input.
Yeah, absolutely. Historically, there are, sometimes bills that will deal with driver's license and the testing requirements to get a driver's license. And so they don't necessarily have the words home education in them, or our systems that we use to kind of like scrub and grab bills might not flag those, but we try to keep an eye out for all of those that might impact home education families, even though home education might not be listed in those bills. If you come across one like that, by all means, please, let us know that you have seen something that's of red flag to you, and we'll pull up that bill and comb through it. So thank you, Brenda. That's a good point.
And just as an interesting detail, what was the number you said of how many bills have been filed so far?
Almost 780.
Yeah, so there's a lot of bills to watch to make sure that they don't in some way touch education. So yeah, just to reiterate, if you happen to see something that we haven't put on the radar yet, please reach out and let us know, because we're following right now publicly that we've announced like 2, maybe 3 bills, but there's over 700 that are actually going through right now that have to be screened for anything that might impact home education families. So,
and another thing is some of those bills may not get agended, and if they're not ever put on an agenda, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
But never. It could be heard in another committee and then amended on if it's an idea that the committee thinks is a good idea. And so it behooves us to all pay attention to the other bills that are being heard. If you want to add an amendment to something that is, what's the word? Not congruent. It's generic to the bill. That's not the right. Germane, thank you. To the bill, then that one we can follow pretty well. But if it pops up from another committee that we have not attended or followed, then you could get something added on the floor. So we want to be cautious about other bills. There was one particular one you mentioned that would not have come through education that might have affected home education, and I cannot remember right now.
It was the driver's license testing requirements is what it was.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the legislative update. I thought it was going to be much faster than that, but I guess there's always so much more to talk about than I think there is as we begin into things. But I want to kind of bring up on the screen now something that Crystal found. It was yesterday that you saw the article and then sent it to me. So,
yeah, I think the article actually was posted maybe December 5th, might have been the date on it, but it came across my feed yesterday. And it hit my interest because it was Leon County specific, which is where we live. It's the county that the capital is in. And it mostly applies to public school, but there were some things in it that I thought were worth just paying attention to and discussing.
Certainly.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think its title, it's from WCTV, and it's entitled Leon County Schools Addressing Unexcused Absences in New Proposed Attendance Policy. So in the new policy, schools can also have a designated school representative who can visit homes. That's one of the subline titles there. So it's a new policy that could be rolled out in Leon County schools that address students who have repeated unexcused absences according to a new policy. Policy applies to students who show a repeated pattern of unexcused absences of 5 within a month or 10 within a 90-day period. It also reads that the school principal is now required to refer the child to a child study team. The child study team may allow the parent to attend the meeting virtually or by phone if the parent is unable to attend the meeting in person. According to the attendance policy, the policy notes that the meeting can proceed without the parent if they do not attend. To me, that's wild. In that case, recommendations from the team based on available information will be sent to the parent within 7 days.
That's pretty much current law. I think the only thing they're changing is to allow parents to attend virtually or by phone, because before they had to attend in person. And I think they're updating the policy because some parents can't get off work or can't make it to the meeting at a particular time, but they might be able to take an hour to meet. And they already have the child study teams in place at the school district. And for the most part, and I don't want to sound like I'm in favor of this, I'm just saying it is current law. And from hearing from those people that are in the district that have to do this, is many times their heart is right. The child can't, the parent doesn't get up to get the child to school. They want to know why. They want to know why that child doesn't have enough clothes. And some of the people that are in charge of those truancies will go get clothes for the kids. Or if it's an issue of, parents working at night and nobody there to get the child up. There are all kind of extenuating circumstances where a child is not attending regularly. And if it's something the district can do to help, then that's the purpose of the child study team. If it's just a parent that is irresponsible, then there are laws that allow them to prosecute the parents for truancy. So I think they're trying to help with the child study team. Maybe the child doesn't feel like the teacher is, working with them and is maybe causing them embarrassment in the class, and maybe they can change the child's teacher. That's what the purpose of it is. Can it be abused? Yes, it can be abused. And that's why I mentioned up front that parents need to withdraw that child at the end of the school year before, if they're even contemplating taking one of the scholarships, so that your child doesn't get rolled over and on August the 15th or whatever
Right.
start date is, they're deemed truant.
Yeah, and it does state that in the new policies, schools can also have a designated school representative who can visit homes and other locations to find the students and bring them to the parents, the school, or a designed truancy site if the parent can't be reached. And it says a quote from Jones. What was Daryl Jones, I believe. Where did it go? Making certain that we're making the types of visits to homes, talking with parents, making certain that we're being responsive to the child's needs. Truancy is a big deal.
There's another quote from him further up.
Oh, where did I go?
Yeah, scroll up.
Literally.
Yeah.
I don't see the quote earlier, but
it's right there in the first section, right under the first picture.
Just read it, Crystal.
I'm waiting for him to scroll on the screen because I'm
there it
looking
is.
at where he
Okay,
is.
there it is. Leon County School Board member Daryl Jones said that this was an important step, quote, so that they can have one important cognitive development, be prepared for testing, and be able to make that transition from one grade to another.
Yeah. So what struck me about this article and why I brought it to Jason's attention was that I don't think, and like Brenda said, a lot of this really doesn't seem like new policy necessarily, but I don't think that parents are perhaps aware of the viewpoint with which public schools view parental authority. So it was just kind of illuminating to me to read through this because, one, he says outright that testing is kind of like their primary goal. Like the kid needs to be at school so he can be prepared for testing, right? That's a whole topic in and of itself. But the other concern is that they can send somebody to pick up your kid from somewhere else and take them without your permission to a designated truancy site or to the school or wherever, or to the parent, but it's their choice in how it's phrased. It's their choice of where they take your kid. You may or may not be notified ahead of time. They can come to your house, and if you don't show up to the meeting, they can make decisions without you. And then it says the parent may appeal. They have a certain amount of time in which to appeal the decision. So I just think it's important for parents to be aware of the level of control they've attempted to take over your children. So that was kind of what struck me as I'm reading it as a parent whose kids are not in the system. And I was like, how wild that if my kids are at a park, they can just go pick them up and take them somewhere. And then I don't know. So I just thought it was worth discussing that this is the current state of things, that this is the level of control and authority the public school system claims, rather than deferring to the parental authority first and foremost. I would have expected that they have to at least have the parent present to make any kind of decision, or to have to notify the parent that the child is being transported. But it doesn't seem like they do. So,
well, you have to realize that all parents are not responsible, and that's the ones they're trying to deal with. And so parents and I've known cases where this happened. Parent will take the child to school in the morning, drop them off, and then the child never goes into the school. And so the child is skipping school without the parent's knowledge. Well, then the sheriff has the right to pick that child up if they find him at the mall or in a park, as you say. And we dealt with that back 15 years ago, where home education kids who had their parents' approval to be wherever they were, be it in a mall or, in a park, and the sheriffs were picking those kids up, but they were a home education child.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is make sure that the sheriff, who has the right to pick those kids up, calls the home education office and asks, is so-and-so registered as a home education student? If they were, then they just left them alone.
I'm curious how PEP fits into that. Because if you were to call the county and ask if my kids are registered as home education students, the answer is no.
Right.
Not that I make a habit of leaving my kids unattended at a park, but still.
Right. No, but that isn't
it. That's a good question.
That is an excellent point, and that is something we're going to have to work out. Maybe they have to carry an ID card from the PEP program in their pockets. I mean, who do they call? So that is a very good question, and something that we need to address as to how that will work. So
yeah, you would hope they would call the parent, but I know not all parents will answer, but my hope would be that would at least be the first attempt, is to try to reach the parent and be like, hey, did you know your kids are not in school? But I guess they don't even have to make that attempt by law. So,
or maybe
built into the stat that I'd have to double check.
Yeah.
But I think they do have to check with the parent, and then if the parent doesn't answer or the parent's not available, then the next step is to basically take them to a holding place until they can reach the parent.
Or maybe we get rid of mandatory attendance altogether, so no one's truant, and we start making schools great again, and places that people actually want to go to and learn from, because they're actually learning things. And man, what a benefit that would be. It's like,
however, let me just say, if
they're available,
do away with attendance, which is what Florida is an attendance state, then what are they going to do? It's going to go to, what is the child learning? And then we begin to say what is required for the grade level, for whatever, and we turn into an education state, and home education parents or PEP parents then have to turn in, like some
all
states,
kinds of plans,
get approval for that program. So there's
we don't want that.
I like attendance.
Can't I just dream, Brenda? Can't I just dream that we might get into a place where attendance is not required and people can go if they want to, and they all learn when they do, because it's such a great place to be. Who wouldn't want to go to public school? Look how awesome these kids are when they graduate. But instead, we have mandatory attendance, and they graduate with a 40% rate of them can't even read. And the average person reads on an 8th grade reading level. We're clearly not winning.
Well, and by their own admission,
we're just doubling down on attendance. It's like,
by their own admission, the test is their goal and priority, not actual functionality of skills when the child leaves the school system. Yeah, I definitely would not want it to turn to an education criteria state.
No,
I'm thankful that Florida is an attendance state, but I do think if you just stop and kind of ponder it, like strip away all of the preconceived expectations, because we're just used to the system, it is a little bit crazy that attendance is mandatory in the first place, and that we had to fight for the right for parents to be able to do something different in the first place. So that's a little bit, I think the authority has been put in the wrong place. And there are parents that are irresponsible, but that with freedom, there's always going to be people that make dumb choices.
I see this meme as you're talking, this meme in my head where it's like, parents, if you don't send your children to a fenced-in building with whitewashed walls and yard time, then we're going to send you to a fenced-in building with whitewashed walls and yard time. It's like,
that's great.
It's like, moof. We're running out of time, but I kind of want to crack open something that has been in this conversation. I think this is a good point to pivot to it, and because it's dealing with kind of the issues of standards in education, where instead of fixing education as a whole, we seem hell-bent on forcing attendance because that is what is going to fix everything. These kids just aren't going. And if they go, they'll all get better. That's the sickness. And it's not true. And we've got, like I said, students graduating and they're just being passed through the system that can't read. They get on in life and they're not doing so hot. They go to college and they graduate with a piece of paper that tells them, we've sold the dream to them, you're going to get a job, and then they can't get a job. They definitely can't get their dream job, and they struggle to find any job. And what they are told is that, they need experience, and they're caught in this loop, and life kicks them in the teeth. And then they go to Barnes and Nobles to try to pick a self-help book off the shelf and find out how life really works, because the school of life is now having to teach them what they should know. And I've kind of prepared a little bit of a statement here, but that I almost want to read because I don't want to mess it up. But it's we're really focused on the wrong things in a lot of ways in education. We've kind of gotten way down the rabbit hole on standards, and we in our efforts to be efficient and make things work so well, and we've studied it, and this is how kids learn better this way, and now everyone cram that down their throat, and then we go, oh wait, actually kids learn in different ways. We should do this way, and like we're just constantly redoing the standard to any new thing that we've constantly coming across. And in all of the pursuit of all of these things with math and science and history and language and arts, and our kids get released into a world where all of the data and information is in their pocket. AI is being leveraged more and more to think for them. They're thrown into social spheres online where the entire world is at their fingertips constantly, and they don't know how to navigate the basic parts of life. And I think one of the subjects that we don't teach, and this has actually been one of my personal reasons why, one of the biggest personal reasons why I didn't want to send my kids to government schools, is that they do not teach self-mastery. I'm not sure I'd want them to be honest with you. But I think it's a critical subject. Self-mastery is one of the most important subjects that we could teach, and it's the foundation of any true meaning and growth that can happen in life. The strategy of mastering thought and action and learning self-control has more to do with success in life than any other subject. And not only is it not studied, it's constantly undermined with self-identity and self-indulgence and self-fulfillment and self-affirmation and self-love, words of affirmation everywhere. And we teach our students, our children, little by little to be self-absorbed. And we teach them to value ease and comfort in many, many ways until they get AI in their hands and all the thinking can be done for them, and they can outsource everything. They can outsource food to the drive-through or the delivery to come deliver it to their houses. They can outsource thinking to AI, or, man, I don't remember that fact. Well, I can just outsource my memory to Google and I'll go look it up in a couple of seconds. So it becomes more and more challenging for one to have a mastery of self when none of the things about self-mastery are taught or enforced. They're actually undermined. And that's a huge, huge problem. This week, in fact, the House is making it the AI, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it basically they're all looking to the impacts and the kind of overall use of AI in everything, especially in education. And they're really trying to peel that back because self-harm rates are up and a lot of people are blaming AI. And, you see that, what's her name? Caitlin Bennett goes around and interviews people out on the beach, and she asks them basic questions like, how many Supreme Court justices are there? And they don't know. They think that's the FBI or something, and they're not sure how many people work there. Or, how many continents are there, and which one do you live on? And they're like, well, we're below Canada, so maybe South America. And it's staggering the level of basic information they don't know. And we can't blame truancy. We can't blame school attendance. And the standards that we study and implement, and then we teach to those tests of standards, but none of them involve just the strategy of thinking, critical thinking, that truth exists and we can find it, or that difficult things are worth doing simply because they're difficult, and the practice of doing something difficult in and of itself produces over a period of time a person who's capable of doing challenging things, like getting fired or losing your job and having to go find a new one, or telling yourself no when you're trying to put together a budget for your family and carve out what your plans are next. These are life things, and we don't study that, and it's critical. So I think it's very important to celebrate the fact that as home education parents in the free state of Florida, we get to set our standards in our education curriculum, that we get to teach our children what we believe really matters in life and lay the kind of foundation for them that we want to lay. And like, that's what we teach in our family. And then on top of that, we go, hey, look, here's how math also does that. And here's how science lets you experiment with that. And here's some people in history who did that. And it's through that lens and that perspective that we tackle language, art, math, science, history. And we watch our kids grow, not into self-indulgent and self-absorbed cretins, but into thinkers and doers who know how to stop thinking and go put it into action once they've decided on their plan, and to be disciplined and diligent enough to see it through, even though it's challenging. It's something that's lost. It's lost in all of our efforts to innovate and make life more comfortable and easy. Some of those important aspects are lost, and I don't think that a lot of the homeschool curriculum tap that either. We try to bring public school home in a lot of ways, and that's what becomes school, and we call it homeschooling. And you're free. Home education parents, you're free to set your standards, to teach your children, to raise them. It's a beautiful thing. Florida is a free state right now. We're fighting to keep it so. Whether you're in the scholarship program or not, we're fighting to make sure parents have the right to set their standards, and that you can grow your children in your way. You can teach them what really matters, what's worked for you in life as you've struggled and learned things. And that has to be the aim, the flag, and the goal. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox now. Sorry.
I was just going to add, it's hard to standardize test for self-mastery, you know, so that's not one of the subjects they cover.
It's not that hard. When your kid gets up and he goes, it hurts, you go, rub dirt on it and go back in there.
How do you fill that in on a Scantron, though? You know, that's difficult.
You're not wrong. I like the Christmas trees myself. I like to draw those on the Scantron. I'm sorry.
But just imagine, going back to what you said at first, can we dream? What if they had Lego competition in every grade, so that kids had to work together to solve problems? They had to do research. What if that was a subject instead of math as a fill in the blank, do this worksheet, and young kids just wanted to get to school? Or like they've done in the schools in Leon County, they put in a
gaming studio.
A gaming studio. Yeah. I bet you there would be more kids flocking to school, begging their parents to get them there on time if they knew they were going to get to game during the school day, and that there was something there to learn. We have to figure out, what are they learning in doing these projects? But it's not project oriented to a large extent. It's worksheets and workbooks. And
I'd love to see a Lego competition in place of standardized testing. Like, let them come use critical thinking and cooperation skills that are going to be real world applicable, and judge them on that instead of SAT and ACT scores. That would be fantastic.
Or even this, there's a multiplicity of boxes everywhere. Shipping boxes from Amazon and shipping boxes that arrive. Like, you have a creativity class to see what they can build out of the random assortment of cardboard boxes that arrived that day. and give them a goal of something they have to accomplish, but they have to design it out of cardboard. Wouldn't that be fun?
That requires too much thinking on the part of the parent.
It's also kind of ironic that Leon County is cracking down on their truancy policy right after building the video game studio, because that really should have worked. That should have helped.
It would be interesting for them to see if that reduced truancy. And that school is located in one of the lowest income area levels in Leon County. So I think that was the idea that whoever put that in the budget for that school had in mind. Maybe you could get the kids to come to school. But maybe there's a reward. Do your math first, and then you get to game for 30 minutes at the end of the day. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Lupita Tucker says schools need to have maker spaces. That would be fantastic. I know in kindergarten they allow that. They just set up like a bunch of creative tools like blocks and crayons and Play-Doh, and they give you time to just do stuff. But for whatever reason, when we get past kindergarten, they don't allow that anymore. Creativity is dead.
Yeah, I think there's a fat chance of any of this dreaming ever happening, because the way that they're rewriting the standards has nothing to do with any of these things, and their solution to making schools great again is to make sure all the butts are in seats, and they have yet to grasp how to actually fix it. And you know, it's a challenge they're trying to solve. I had an interesting conversation with one of the representatives who, when I talked to him and I said that AI is not the problem, that what we do to boys in these public schools is the problem, that we don't understand how to turn them into men, and everything that we do disrupts all the things that would do that. And so then they get turned loose and don't know, you know, they hit all of those walls in life that make them unsuccessful and question and second guess, but they don't have the resilience to hit those walls. And it's like being tossed a heavy set of weights when you haven't been weightlifting for the last 10 years. And now you're crushed under the weight of that because, oh, you didn't make A's, don't worry, we'll curve it up. Oh, you know, here's a grading scale from F to A's, but you know, the average people make C's. That's the average grade, so don't worry about it. But make all A's or you're not getting on the dean's list or this or the honor roll. There's no rewards for you. Like, you got to be up here, and then you hit, I mean, this happened to me. You hit failure after failure after failure in life. You get a job, you lose it. You work 3 jobs just to pay the bills of what one job would make because you couldn't find one job to do it. And like, you just sacrifice and suffered until each time you make some advancement, you carve out a new plateau and you do what you can to stay there, and you're diligent and frugal and thoughtful with everything at hand, and you build a skill set on which you can rely, and then you go activate that skill set to move here or there and around until you finally get there. And that's hard. It's really hard, but that's life. And we have to prepare education. The point of it is to prepare students for life, for living. And we're so busy teaching them a bunch of stuff they're going to Google later when they really need to know it, that they don't actually know how to get on in life. And that's I get sad thinking about it. So
the sad thing is that many of the kids that are becoming our dropouts and failures and not being able to read and function in life is they don't have dads at home. And that is so sad, because
soul crushing,
because it totally changes the way a child will function in life. And I mean, it affects girls, but it really affects boys. If they don't have a role model, they don't have a dad to take them by the hand and train them to be men. So it's a bigger issue than just school and education. The bigger issue is the breakdown of the family.
Yeah. And there's no substitute for that. But I will say that is one of the reasons why I'm keenly focused on the extracurriculars, because I think it's somewhere around 90% of the coaches are men. And we want those those places where ideas meet reality and they battle it out. And those are great breeding grounds for, ideas. I think I'm somebody, and then you get hit and you realize you might be a little smaller than you thought you were. So you got to train a little harder, and you hit reality, and it's good for you. And a lot of the men who get involved in those areas are not just coaching a sport; they become mentors, and it's something that's important. I think it's super critical, and it definitely needs to be accessible to home education families as well as public school students, because we all pay our taxes, and that's what funds and puts those programs together. So it's of keen interest to me.
I would like to see interscholastics become teams that maybe are not playing in the FHSAA, but they're like secondary teams where kids can't make the first team, but they still have the opportunity to be with a coach that becomes a mentor in their lives.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I'd love to see that, because what you're gonna see if this bill goes through the way that it is. Sorry, Crystal. If this bill goes through the way that it is, everybody's going to be playing at their zone school unless it doesn't offer the sport, and then they could play at another school in their district, or then they could play at a school outside of their district. And so you're going to start to see a bunch of schools that are going to be just turning away people because, hey, their team's filled and they're full. So at least the very minimal opportunity of creating a second team for schools like that needs to be on the radar, if nothing else. Crystal, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, even outside the mentorship potential, there's just a lot to be learned from playing a sport or engaging in a group extracurricular activity that is not learned, in a typical classroom setting, in terms of cooperation and facing challenges in a very real physical sense, where you have to master your mind and your body simultaneously. There's a lot to be learned from those experiences, even if like me, you're not that great at sports, but it can still be a worthwhile experience. I ran cross country because my coordination is terrible at every other sport. So, but I learned a lot about self-mastery in the process of running cross country that stuck with me. I know I can do hard things because I've done hard things.
Right.
And so there's even just that base experience to make that available to kids that maybe don't have the athletic prowess to make the first cut team. I think there is value in that.
Yeah. Well, Brenda, it's been a fantastic discussion. We've actually gone over time, and we actually still have people watching and listening. So I'm going to let them get their day back going. But before we do that, I always want to give you the final word to kind of wrap things up with. So what would you like to say?
What I would like to say is parents have been given a fantastic opportunity to be in control of their children's lives by being in a home education program or being in a PEP program, and especially in the UA program, because the public schools are not going to give children everything that they need. And parents, with the help of the state, by giving them the resources to do that, has really provided a great opportunity to parents to take over the education of their children. So remember, it didn't happen without hard work and without the fight to do it. I'm always going to go back to the support of the Home Education Foundation, because those rights were earned because somebody donated their time, their energy, and fought for the rights that they should have outside of and in the system that they were supporting. So if you're enjoying the rights that you have, or you think you might want to enjoy the rights, supporting a lobbyist to be on the scene in the Capitol is almost essential. You're not going to preserve those rights if an individual from a hometown just wants to do one thing and then go home. It's a broad spectrum, and you need somebody on the ground watching what's going on, especially in these next couple of months. So we don't have big banks or lawyers or people that have associations that donate money or require you to pay into their lobbying fund. It's you, the parents, that enjoy the rights that have resulted from having a lobbyist in the Capitol.
You know, I'll only add a little bit to that, which is to say that on our website, flhef.org/support is where you can go to sign up for any of that support. We have, you know, as is all the time, this time of year with people buying Christmas presents and things like that, we've had a couple of our supporters fall off and not renew. And, you know, I see them come and I see them go, but it's always gives us more confidence to see them come. So if you're one of those people who have been thinking about it and you haven't yet, it does make a huge difference. So please, you know, activate that. And if you haven't, join our Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord, please go ahead and do that, because all of the information that we posted from earlier in this podcast is going to be there about the bills and what you can do to help. So we'll get that out on up in there today. And then I just want to say thank you to the parents of the free state of Florida for all that you do in terms of preparing the way for your own students and home education, as well as the support that you've given to us. Thank you also to our top sponsors, Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group. And without further deviation or ado, you'll have your day back. And thank you to Alex for this amazing intro and outro music he wrote custom for us. Alex, you're the man.